Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented as always by Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y. Again, on Instagram, it's at RemyTavCincy. And while you're there, grab yourself an ice cold Cincy Light, as we are coming at you live from the Cincy Light Studios. All right, George, you've had some issues with internet. I've had some issues with internet the last couple of weeks. Let's see if we can get a show out of this.
I feel like I'm on dial-up. Like, were you ever? You're not old enough for dial-up, are you?
Oh, I remember dial-up. Listen, we had the Kmart blue light CDs that came. You'd get like 75 free hours of dial-up. I remember.
You know, I hate to even bring this up, but I read that somewhere, and I think it was in California, who knows where it was, there is still a train system that operates, and they have to boot up with a floppy disk to get these trains rolling every day. Someone has to insert, and that's what I felt like tonight. I don't know what the heck's going on. I know what part of it is. Remember my rant last week about the Blantons and my wife mixing it and using it all and all this? I come home and I got this nice big ice ball, and I usually don't pour Blanton on the rocks. I usually drink it neat. But I'm like, okay, I got this nice big rock, pour some Blantons on it. I got about the bottom of the glass on it, so I just turned to the tequila to at least have a drink and something I could sip on. And then I sit down and try to log in to talk with you, and it takes 20 minutes. It's ridiculous.
Goodness gracious.
I think it's me more than it is everything else. I think I'm the issue. But hopefully everything's going well now, Aaron, and I'm pleased to hear about your gift you had that's going to help your internet issues. I don't know if you want to say that publicly, but that's very nice.
Oh, I don't mind. Yeah, for my Father's Day. For my Father's Day gift, I'm getting all this is going to be hardwired, so I won't have the Wi-Fi issues any longer.
Well,
so
I shouldn't have them either. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. But, you know, my nephew's been over for the past week, so I don't know what the hell he's done in here. But I'm going to find out.
Well, let's get this show underway.
Let's do it.
The Bearcats this weekend played in the regional in Knoxville and started out pretty well against Wake Forest on Friday, and the wheels kind of went off the rails after that as they lose on Saturday to Tennessee, and then lose on Sunday to Wake Forest again, and they were eliminated subsequently.
Yeah, you hate the result.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just exciting though that they were there. They obviously you would have probably liked a better matchup in the first round than both Wake Forest, who they've had very good success here in the last several seasons. As you can see, Chase Burns tearing his way through the Reds minor league system, and Rhett Lauder as well in the Reds system. Both products of Wake Forest there, and Tennessee, you know, just the defending national champion, no big deal.
Right. And you're playing on their field.
Yeah.
No complaints there. They earned that right. They should have that right. But how much fun was that? We went up to Remington Tavern, of all places, on Friday to watch the game and had a gaggle of Bearcat fans there, and even had a Xavier guy show up and was rooting for UC. So I got to give that. Yeah, that was strong. And it was so much fun. I mean, God bless that baseball team for giving us what they did and having fun. Very disappointed in the result. Hope for better. You know, only one team's going to go home after this. Although, to me, all 8 teams that go to that World Series after these super regionals, it's a successful season and then some. But I consider it a successful season for the Bearcats. It was a lot of fun. It was a great run. To me, some of it to get this far was unexpected. I did not expect them
Yeah.
to make this tournament. And, it comes down to you got to have enough pitching. And going into the weekend, everyone I talked to that's followed UC baseball and knows what's going on was worried about the depth of the pitching. And to me, that's kind of what did them in. Some other things could have been better, but how much fun was Friday and watching that win? And even on Saturday against Tennessee, and you get that great play, they score a couple of runs, and God, I believe the bases may have been loaded when the kid made that play in center field. That diving catch.
The diving catch, yeah. Yep.
I mean, what a great play. And that kid played so well down the stretch. And I hope they're able to keep him. I don't know how this crap works with NIL and everything in baseball and transferring, but they've got some really good young players that if they can keep their hands on, they're going to be a factor again next year in the Big 12. Just got to find some pitching, but everybody in college is searching for pitching because you just go bang, bang, bang. And, it's hard to get quality pitching. And hopefully UC is able to solve that part of it. But I was really, really impressed with what they did this year and really, really hoped that they could find some way to win, but they were up against it. I mean, you're at Tennessee. You're at their home field. As you say, you face Wake Forest in round 1. Then, okay, you get the home team, and you got to play the Volunteers, who are the defending national champs, on their own field in the NCAA tournament. It's a tough ask, but you got to have the arms to get through that, and that's pretty much what it came down to. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I give them all the props in the world for a great season, and you hope they can build on that. You hope that this whole craziness in college sports doesn't mean you have a whole new roster next year. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to know how the retention level is going to be. And I don't know if even the coaches know what the retention level is going to be right now with the wild, wild west of what's going on in college athletics.
Well, some of it's going to depend on the House settlement and what comes down here in the next, 28 days or so, 27 days before July 1st, and we'll see what happens with all of that. Of course, you have to wonder.
I feel good that somehow, some way, and it's not just, baseball. We saw what happened in the offseason with basketball. I don't know what's going on. UC's doing a really good job and doing a really good high wire act so far in what's going on here to at least give you the feeling that they are plugged in and are doing the best they can with this stuff. Yeah. Because, you look at baseball, you look at women's basketball, you look at this off season in men's basketball, and I feel good about what they're doing because when this stuff first started, I felt like they were in a really tough spot, but I don't know how they're doing it, but somebody's doing a really good job managing all this, in my opinion.
Even in football, I mean, getting Joe Cotton, who was ballyhooed as the
Amen.
highest ranked left tackle in the spring portion of the portal. That's nothing to just. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal because when he pops open, Ohio State's sniffing around, right? And it's like, they're coming off a national championship, and God knows they got more money. They probably have damn near as much, if not more, than anybody in college football, right? I mean, they're there. They're on name 4 teams that can outspend them. I don't think you can, because you're getting 110,000 plus a crowd at home. I mean, they're loaded, and we know that's the big game in town, not just in Columbus, but in a big part of Ohio. So for UC to be able to, compete with that, I'm very pleased so far.
Yeah, it's been fairly impressive. And like I said, we'll see what happens with baseball. We don't know where the money is going to be allocated as far as the uh, how they're paying the players and all of that. I'm sure that with Freedom of Information Act and Justin Williams reporting or the Enquirer reporting or whoever ends up getting that information, I'm sure it'll end up being reported somehow, some way, because you can't just pay people at these public universities and it not be readily available to the public.
I know what I would do though. If you've got, I don't know, like with this indoor practice facility and all that, and I cannot wait. I hope I get to see the inside of that sooner rather than later. I mean, it's massive. It looks great. I would just love that any Reds that happen to be in town, wouldn't you just say, come drop by and, throw some balls or talk to our kids, work with them, work out with. I mean, I would have that thing available to any professional athlete in town that wants to come by and show the kids how it's done. And I'm sure they'll probably do all this, but I would think big with that. I'd be like, shit,
Reds, Bengals, whoever,
some BP, whatever.
Yep. You could certainly do that with the Reds here, although they're busy, 8 months of the year.
No, they are, but guys come in town. I know they're not always hitting or whatever, but damn it, I would play that up as much as I can with these professional teams in town.
Well, even some of the guys who are still around, like a Bronson Arroyo, who still lives locally, I believe. I mean, there's some different things you can do with that. But that grand opening is, June 11th. And
grand opening, I guarantee
it. But June 11th will be the grand opening. Well, I guess not the public grand opening, but the ribbon cutting and all of that. So I think media is going to be there. I don't know if you're planning on being there. I'll try and get there.
I don't know if I'm allowed. I'm like,
you're allowed. We've talked about this. We can get you a credential.
About it. Well, I'm in. I will mark the date down. I will do whatever I have to do. I want to see this thing, and I'm flabbergasted. I mean, if I think about that corner of the campus, it's
crazy.
Yes. When I was at Sander Hall and I'd come down that elevator and go over to Walgreens and, get my 3-2 beer, I'm flabbergasted. Adriatico's was right on that corner too, over there in a house right near that indoor practice, right across the street from it on Jefferson. That was the old Adriatico's over there. And when I discovered that was bad when I discovered it. And I'm like, shoot, I really don't have enough money to buy this good pizza every night, but god dang, it's good. So, they kept me on a short string for a long time when I was a student.
No shocker there. But in any case, we'll have plenty to talk about then. I guess 2 weeks from now, if we're both able to be in attendance on that. But again, it was a great season for Jordan Bishel and them boys. We'll see where this thing goes. If I'm John Cunningham, I am doing everything I can to get him to sign an extension yesterday.
Yep. And I John probably realizes that. He's no dummy. He knows what's going on, and I'm sure he's on top of that and has a. You bring him up, and I know there's been some thoughts either way on him, but he's done a pretty good job. In fact, a really good job. And you look at the baseball coach hiring, um, the women's basketball coach hiring now. I know people are got their pants in a wad over the football, but that's going to shake out. I really do believe there's a nice, slow and steady to the improvement of that. And then we're going to see. This is a make or break, in my opinion, for Wes, but I think it's going to be a make. I think we're going to see something really, really positive this basketball season.
Well, it'd be about damn time. That's all I got to
Yeah,
say.
I agree. But you know what? If you look, I've said this before, but I know some people that families that played for him down in Greensboro, and they loved him, and they told me this is the best hire you can make, and I don't know. I didn't know at the time. West kind of came out of left field in that coaching search, and I know this. Wes really, really cares. Probably almost cares too much, and that's why that outside criticism probably he's got to let that go and not worry that much about it. He's got to do his thing, but that does tell me he cares a lot and wants to do the right thing. So we'll see if he gets it done. I mean, he's got to have a good year because he's got some horses.
Yeah, time will tell. But like I said, again, hat tip to Jordan Mitchell for getting them there this season. Hopefully next year you're back in there and able to compete at a higher level. We'll see what he's able to do with the transfer portal. Obviously, you're not going to have Carrington Cross coming back as he is out of eligibility and he is bound to get drafted. We'll see how high. I imagine he's
watch. What a fun kid to watch.
D1 Baseball has him ranked as the number 1 third baseman in the country. It'll be interesting to see where Landon Viderick ends up if he ends up being drafted. So I think that there's certainly more than one Bearcat on this roster who could be drafted in this upcoming MLB draft. And we'll see where the roster ends up. Who knows?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I got to see some games late in the season live, and I'm telling you, I'm sitting there, and I'm this is something for later, but maybe not. But God dang it, that stadium is so nice and so much fun to watch games in, and it was a ball. But those high school regionals, I did not realize until recently, they're not there this year, I guess. And I'm not sure why, but that's a loss. That is a loss for high school baseball, not having their freaking local regionals at that stadium. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And I think they're at Wright State and I think Oxford this year. I mean, to me, I'm sorry. That's a joke.
Well, you bring up Wright State. They took out number 1, so kudos to them. My alma mater.
Wright State has been impressive, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about how good their baseball program's been. And boy, impressive again.
In any case, let's talk about some baseball that's been maybe not so impressive, although they are winning tonight. The Cincinnati Reds are up 4-2 in the bottom of the 8th, but it's been a week. I don't know what to make of this team. I don't know if I can make heads or tails of it anymore, George. We said it when he was signed. This Hampson kid, he's in the 9th last night and doesn't come through, and no one's surprised.
And it's not his fault. It's the Reds' fault.
Yeah, for bringing him into the organization, putting him in that position. Yes. But they lose the series to the Braves. They took one of the 4 games in Atlanta. Or, I'm sorry, that was forever ago. No, it took me to the top of the month. But no, they take 2 of 3. I'm sorry, 2 of 3 from the Royals, and then they they lose 2 of 3 to the Cubs in Chicago, and then now in against Milwaukee at home. Lost last night towards the end there, and you just again you just wonder what we're doing, because you have a chance against, especially against the division, and you blow it time and time again.
First of all, can we send the Brewers back to the American League? Just get them out of
an option, no.
Because the Reds can't be.
No, I have a stat on that actually.
Who's pitching, who's leading. I don't know how a team can own another team as much as the Brewers own the Reds.
Since 2017, and this was as of last night, so we'll see after tonight. They could improve to 52. But as of last night, the Reds are 51-84 against the Brewers since 2017.
It's been obnoxious. And they went through a period like this with the Cardinals and still haven't really come out of it. But they went through that period with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals owned them, and the Cardinals still kind of do. And that's a bad thing when you got 2 teams in your division that freaking own you. And most of your games, usually, when they have the right schedule, are heavily favored or heavily balanced as in the division. So, yeah.
Let me throw another stat. Let me throw.
Please do.
Let me throw another stat at you. This was a couple days ago, so of course it's updated since then. I don't know at what point during the day, but this was 3 days ago, according to, and this one belongs to the Reds on Twitter. He said that the Reds are now 1-14 when they score 0 or 1 run. That means they are 28-16 when they score 2 or more runs. That's unbelievable.
That really is. However, it's not unbelievable. The first stat is not unbelievable. If you score 0 or 1, you're probably not going to win. But, first of all, starting pitching is
I guess that's it.
Right.
Exactly.
That has not been the problem. They can't score. Look at this weekend. I mean, you score 1 and you get shut out, I believe, right? Like, what the hell? So
they've been messy, and of course you have, unfortunately, Ellie De La Cruz going through his personal problems as his sister passes away this past week.
Almighty. I mean, I don't even know how you go out and do what he did and
hit a home run the next day.
Yeah, from what I read, there was some warning on this, or at least some preparation that this could happen. And so but still, that doesn't make it any easier to go out there and do what he did. And I know Ellie strikes out too much, but Ellie ain't the problem. Ellie is not the problem on this team. I feel bad for Francona, but he could have known this before he took the job. But it's like, there's nobody you can trust to put in the game when you go and take a starter out. And that's aggravating. And then just the fact that, they did have to go out and pick up a guy off the street to be a utility guy, because your roster is kind of screwed up a little bit, in my opinion. I think they got to make a decision. Okay, what's the problem here, Aaron? Tell me. You got Tyler Stevenson, right? Former first-round pick, who's the catcher. If you don't trust him to be a defensive catcher, then you got to think about that. And then, you got Trevino and Wins. Like, you got to pick 2. I don't care. But we can't be doing this 3-catcher thing forever. And then you have to pick up this ultra utility guy to cover all these spots because you got 3 catchers / first baseman. They it drives me nuts. That's all I can say.
Well, that log jam's about to get even worse because you have Christian Encarnacion Strand, who's hitting really well in his rehab stint
Yes.
down in AAA. So you got another guy who's going to be
trying to make a decision. I'm sorry. If Austin Wins goes, Austin Wins go. Okay. I mean,
So
had a hot 3-4 weeks, whatever. I don't care.
Yep.
If you look at the back of his baseball card, he's not going to do that long term. So, do you like him better? Do you like Tyler Stevenson better, who you invested a first round pick in low many years ago, and you got to get rid of that? And that drives me nuts too. These organizations invest these picks and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, I know, there you go. But you invest these picks, but God dang it, a 5th round pick may be better than the guy you took in the 1st round. And if you got 2 years of evidence, then maybe you go with the evidence. And I don't know. I know how it works, and I think it's bull crap. I'll tell you, a guy on the Reds roster that lasted out all of that stuff was Suter. That was a guy drafted in the 30-something round, and every year, and because I watch these local kids, so I'm looking at his, I'm looking at his numbers, and I'm like, how is this kid not getting promoted? How? Well, because the GM, if you draft a guy in the 2nd round and he's getting out pitched by a guy in the 34th round, you look like an idiot. Well, you don't. I mean, you're just looking at talent and drafting guys, and when you get them into your kettle, and then this guy looks better than that, you got to go with that guy, right?
We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is at this point. I truly don't know what the plan is. You thought it was the young guys, and the young guys are here. They're all here for the most part. I mean, you're only missing what?
Yeah, but you know, Matt McClain threw him a curveball because of his lack of doing anything at the plate. That's a curveball because that dude did nothing but produce from the day he was drafted. But still, you have to know, okay, we trust this guy. I don't know that you just keep playing him. I don't know what they're going to do. But you've got to build your team and all that based on results and what you see, as opposed to what you think they're supposed to do. And that's where I think the Reds get caught in some crap.
Well, they've been doing that for years and years. And that's why we ended up with the aging, expiring contracts of some guys that probably should have been traded well before they were, because they had some all-star appearances in years prior, but I digress. In any case,
I know what you're saying
without dropping names. But in any case, I don't know. We'll see. It looks like they're going to, it's looking like they're going to end up putting this one away.
Please.
It's 4-2 in the top of the 9th. They're sitting at 29-32, George. Right now, as far as the standings go, they are 9.5 back behind Chicago. This weekend, of course, did not help them in that regard. And then as far as the wild card goes, they're only 5 games back. And right now, I know you talked about they're 5 games back, but there's like 6 teams ahead. No, not so fast, my friend. Milwaukee is 1 game back. They're ahead of Cincinnati. And San Francisco is a half game back, and they're ahead of Cincinnati. But outside of that, St. Louis is sitting there. They're the ones that we're 5 games back on. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to turn this thing around, and it's going to take some win streaks. It's going to take some win streaks. It's going to take hitting the fucking ball, but because pitching's been outstanding. I just don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who it comes from, but something's got to give. Austin Hayes can't stay on the field right now. When he's been out there, he's been fantastic. He's back on the IL at this point. You hope that Christian Encarnacion Strand can weather this thing and get right and stay on the field the rest of the season, because when he's hitting well, he's a guy that you might be able to get some pop from at a position that you've struggled to get any type of result from at first base. That said, you still need to make a move, and you've got plenty of people in your system to make a move for a corner outfielder, in my opinion.
What do you think about Austin Hayes? Because last week we had that, and I'm like, maybe they ought to approach him and just think. I'm not so sure now, because if you can't stay out of the tub, 7 days has changed my mind. I was so mad when he
Classic
was
George.
So what do you do? I would love to approach him and do 3 years. Not that he would do. I don't know what he's thinking, but do I want to sign him for 3 years when the guy can't stay on the field? Why?
I say no.
Dude,
I think
I understand that. I understand that.
I think you wait and see what the free agent class is going to be like this offseason, and you go into the offseason with him as an option because he had success here when he was healthy. Hopefully that continues the course of the rest of the season.
Well, who knows? But if it gets to the trade deadline and that guy's worth something to somebody,
ship him out.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. And my mind changed in 7 days on that because they got hurt again. I mean, you cannot win with guys on the DL. I'm sorry, or it's the IL now because we can't say the D
word. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this team. I don't know how the rest of the season's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, they're outrageous.
You traded Alexis Diaz. That was the first real big move that you've made this season.
For a guy who threw 2 minor league innings.
What
the hell was that?
That's another move that they made too late because the guy made an all-star appearance, George. That's another guy. Just add him to the list.
But who knew he was going to crap the bed like he did? I mean, this guy fell off the table. He fell off the table.
It's a weird situation, but one that I feel like
with the Reds, it's like every guy that looks like he's going to be a perennial all-star, just trade him.
That's
what it seems like. Their luck factor on dudes over the course of time is horrible.
Well, how much of that though is due to the front office and surrounding a guy?
Because I look at these guys and I see what they're doing. Now I'm not on the field and all that with them, and they know these guys from top to bottom. So there's something missing somewhere, and I don't know what it is because I'm not involved at that level. But somebody's got to know, right? There's got to be something that's just off a little. Now, all that being said, we knew coming into the season and every year with the Reds, there's not a lot of margin for error. You can't have a lot of injuries. You can't have, a guy fall off here. They're never deep, right? And in baseball, 162 games, you got to be deep. And they're never deep. They're usually 1 injury away or 2 injuries away from disaster. And maybe that's not explaining everything this year. But last year, when they lost Matt McClain, that was a big damn deal. And he's still not right.
No. I don't think this year is who he is. I think he's still trying to get right. I think the same can be said probably for Spencer Steer. I don't know that we're going to see what he looks like this season, what his true form is.
Doing much better.
He's coming around. But I don't know. It's a mess. We'll see. They did win tonight, so positive. Hooray. They did it. But when your bench consists right now of Connor Joe and this Hampson dude and Jake Fraley and Will Benson, and it's
I know.
I don't know what they're doing. Again, I don't know what the plan
Well,
is.
they
It's
can't.
not,
They just are not. How do I phrase this? They're just not able to afford enough frontliners. They're really not.
I'm calling bullshit on that. They refuse to pay anybody, and they're paying the wrong.
Well, no, that
they do this.
could be. Whoa! Who are they paying?
Jaime Candelario, I get that. That was a garbage contract
Agree with
when
that.
they
That was a
signed him.
dumb signing. We both
Yes.
agreed at the time.
Yes.
Dumb signing.
Yes.
But Espinal's way better that they pulled off the street than Candelario has ever thought about being with them.
Candelario had like a month, I think, on that
That
entire deal at this
was
point.
a dumb signing. First of all,
And then
you're going into the season and you've got all these infielders, and that's the guy you signed going into spring, or I don't know, it was a February, January signing, $15 million a year for it. $15 million? Give me a good arm. You had enough infielders. Get me a good arm, right?
You could find probably 3 outfielders right now in this past season's free agency that could have been better in the outfield with that $15 million.
Shit,
Anyway.
They found Austin Hayes for $5 million.
Well, he can't stay on the field, so the jury's still out on that.
Well, I would rather have $5 million in him than 15 in Candelario.
Fair enough.
No.
Moving topics. I said fair enough. Fair enough. White flag.
Okay.
Switching topics. The Bengals. I talked about last week. They made it official this week in a press release, but they did announce 3 additions to the team's player personnel department, hiring Josh Hinch and Tyler Ramsey as scouts and Trey LeBounty as a scouting research analyst. They're adding to a scouting department that has been, truthfully, verbally accosted and beat up for probably the better part of my adult life. So they beef up the scouting department while it's still nowhere near what the rest of the league is doing in the scouting department. They're at least starting to put pieces in place. And honestly, that's a giant step for this organization.
It is. They have been like slowly drugged by the ears into modern football. But I will say this. So when Paul Brown was running the show and Paul was really big on his assistant coaches kind of getting their eyes on the guys before they had to coach them to be NFL players. So it was kind of a running joke way back in the early 80s or whatever. The Bengals assistant coaches made as much money or more than other assistant coaches around the league. But the other assistant coaches around the league didn't have to go scout, didn't have to go talk to these kids, didn't have to do a lot of but Paul wanted his coaches doing that. And then things kind of passed them by where these other organizations figured out, oh shit, we got to get more eyeballs on these college kids and know everything that's going on. And so I think the Bengals are obviously playing catch up on all this. But I will say this, Paul Brown's philosophy about your assistant coaches having a say in these draft picks and the kids that they are going to have to coach up and try to make into NFL players was a very solid proposition. I think it was the way to go. And it kind of proves itself with the Bengals that, they got to, and this may not be the reason why, But back in the true era of expansion franchises, they were the first team to make the playoffs after 3 years of being in the NFL and starting from scratch, because back then it was a whole different deal than the expansion drafts now. And I just, there's a lot of merit in having your assistant coaches have eyeballs on these guys and say, yep, that guy can do what I want him to do. So all that being said, what I'm trying to say is, like, I understand the philosophy, and it comes from Paul Brown, that your assistant coaches need to have eyeballs on these guys. However, in this day and age, there's so much going on. You got to have a lot of other eyeballs to say, hey, you want to look at this guy, this guy, this guy. You don't want your assistants having to look at 500 guys. You want to boil down to 20 guys, right?
Right.
And that's
Right.
what they need to do. That's what they need to do. And that's
Well, that's
I mean, I'm very loyal, I guess, to the Paul Brown philosophy of what he did, but I get they got left behind because other organizations realized, well, we got to boil it down to 50 so the assistants can look, or whoever. No, the Bengals didn't do that. Hopefully they get to the point where they are. But look, to me, I know too many cooks spoil the stew, but when it comes to scouting guys who can play in the NFL, the more eyeballs and ears you have, and just finding out if these guys are the kind of guys you want in the organization and that you want to, draft and put some capital in. You gotta know what's going on with these kids.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. I'm just happy that they've added to that department. That's a huge win for truthfully everyone who's a fan of this team.
And I'm
that
probably
said,
I'm
you still have.
I'm probably a little jaded on. Mike Brown got so mad at me once for asking him about the general manager and scout question. Oh my God. Oh, I pissed him off. But I didn't care. I'm like, dude. He's like, have you looked at Pittsburgh's? Well, I'm not asking about Pittsburgh's department. I'm asking about yours.
That's fantastic. In any case, the getting back to the Browns, they're still in negotiations with the county. The county is still refusing to get rid of the firm who's representing the county, who's also representing the situation going on with the Browns and it's the Cleveland Browns, that is. So that's where things are getting sticky. You got to wonder whose best interest that this firm is going to be working in, as both teams are fighting for the same money, fighting for money out of the same pot. I don't feel good about any of that. I wish they would find a different firm, but we all know that when Paul Brown finds a guy he likes, he is a loyal guy to a fault.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you just said. But they also, I'll tell you what, they got enough money to bring in another somebody and just look out for their best interests, right?
You'd think so.
So here's what I think. I think Mike and Katie take that role upon themselves, which I get because they are very
They're
confident
lawyers.
in what they. I know. And I'm not going to say I don't feel good about that. I feel pretty good about that too, because they've done pretty damn well when you're negotiating governmental stuff and team stuff. They've cut some pretty good deals. So I'm not overly worried about that. I do hope they have another observer, but they've had a pretty good track record of looking out for the Cincinnati Bengals when it comes to issues like that. Am I
Certainly
crazy?
more so than the county. So
Yes.
we'll see how this deal goes. No, not at all. But from my understanding, they're looking at a 10-year extension of the stadium lease, and we'll see where it goes from there. But that's the latest there.
I think
as far as the team itself goes, Shamar Stewart.
Get it done.
As far as the team itself goes, Shamar Stewart is still not practicing, although he was on the sidelines, did not warm up with anybody, did not do anything with the team. So he's there. He's in pads, and he's still not signed his contract, still holding out. I'm still Team Stewart. Regardless of what people say, I don't blame him one single bit for wanting to hold out to make sure that if he does get injured, he's still getting paid the way he should be getting paid. Why the Bengals are being so obstinate in the fact that they do not want to put this wording in a first-round contract is beyond me. It seems to me, especially when you're having issues with, I don't know, the guy who's supposed to be starting ahead of him. So now you've got an issue with both the guy who's starting ahead of him and the first-round draft pick. Figure one of them out. You have to figure one of them out. Get one of them on the field.
Why now? Why now do you take this stand when your Pro Bowler is like requesting a trade, wants a new deal, that this is your best defensive player, he makes the plays when the game's on the line, and then you draft this dude to, I don't know, maybe replace him or at least help supplement, and then you're like messing with him too. I don't know. I'm aggravated with this. I'm aggravated with it. Number one, okay, what's been reported, and if this isn't true, the Bengals need to set the record straight, right? Just be truthful. Don't give us BS. Don't just ignore it. And just from what I read and everything I've taken in, the language in this dude's contract is different from what it was last year for the first round pick. Well, why is it different?
Because
what do you need more than anything? You need a freaking edge rusher.
Something to do with where he was drafted, as opposed to like being the 17th pick.
I don't care. He's a first round pick.
Agreed. I agree.
I know. It drives me nuts.
So what it has to do with is outs in the contract. Like if something happens and he gets arrested or whatever. So other teams in the NFL are putting these outs in the contract, but they're offsetting them by giving the player more money up front. So it's a give and take, right? Like we want extra protections. If you do something stupid, then we're not obligated to pay you $15 million over 4 years, which is understandable, okay? But if you're going to do that, then you have to compensate the player. There has to be give and take in a negotiation, or it's not a negotiation. So the Bengals are trying to insert this new language into the contract that gives them outs over the course of the 4 years that Stewart's contract would run.
Oh, for God.
And like I said, everybody else is kind of doing this now, or introducing it into the way that they're structuring their contracts. The difference is they are saying, we understand that we're changing the language, and as a result, we're going to give you more money up front. And the Bengals are saying, we're giving you the same money up front that the pick one spot behind you got last year, but we're changing the language where if you screw up, we can cut you and not have to give you anything that we haven't already paid you.
First of all, if you got any doubts about this dude, then don't draft him.
I don't think it's doubts. I think it's just the way contracts are being done now.
That stuff. I mean, I just, it drives me insane.
Again, if you plan on doing this, though,
when this first started, I was kind of on the Bengals side. I'm like, just get on the field and do your stuff. And then the more it went, so I mean, I get it
Again,
both ways,
just
but I just
figure out one or the other. You've got to get one of these dudes on the field.
there's got to be a happy medium somewhere, right?
With the Bengals,
This Hendrickson thing is really getting problematic. We'll see how it shakes out, but you know, we've talked about this too. That should have been figured out a year or two ago.
well, that's
I'm sorry, if the dude comes in like he did and plays the first 2 years like he did for the Bengals. I'm locking him up for a couple more years, 3, 4 more years.
They did that 2 seasons ago. They locked him up through this season, this upcoming season. Last season, when he tried to renegotiate again, he isn't able to because you can't renegotiate 2 years in a row.
They could have.
Well, we know how that goes.
I know, but that's a problem, and
that's an organizational problem. They do this all the time.
No, when you strike gold, keep gold, right?
Oh. Chronic problem with these Cincinnati Bengals.
Unfortunately.
In any case, the last thing,
put it in perspective, they offered him a 75% raise. He was making 16. They offered him a $12 million raise to 28. I mean,
he wants more years. He wants more.
Yeah.
It's not the money this year. It's the subsequent years thereafter.
Sure.
All I know is with him and Chase and Higgins, it's cost them more.
Last thing I want to point out in the Bengals conversation, if you're not following Dan Horde for reasons, if you're any type of Cincinnati fan, you have to follow Dan Horde. If you're not, I can't understand your fandom. But the 5 things that he puts out from the practices that he goes to are simply fantastic. Today's was probably the best that I've seen from Bengals offseason. Cam Taylor-Britt picked off Joe Burrow, said that we can be moved anywhere when talking about the defense. You just don't know what we're in. The disguises are amazing, and we get Joe sometimes. So defense is trending up, according to Cam Taylor-Britt, who was a player who struggled at times last season. So those are good things. The second thing that he saw was Joe Burrow in the very next snap, after being picked off, hits Jamar Chase for a 70-yard touchdown. So he was pissed off and went ahead and took care of business. The third thing is Andre Iosivas is having a great offseason, looking bigger and stronger, faster, twitchier, according to T. Higgins. So those are good things. Also, the defense is coming out for punch, strip, and ripping the ball away practice before practice. So they're getting extra reps in on defense before practice even starts. That's an interesting thing that Dan Horde was able to pick up by going to practice today. And also Dax Hill is apparently going to be put in position to cover and blitz, according to cornerback coach Chuck Burks. Corner, nickel, whatever. He has an elite skill set. We plan to use it. So that's a glimpse at what we may see Dax Hill being used on the field this season, as he is kind of a utility knife out there in the secondary. So that's nothing but a good thing. And again, just kind of looks at the defense is going to be different than what it was last season. And that could be just what you needed.
Well, I hope so. I'll believe it when I see it. But I'm optimistic, and I'm not surprised about the Iosivas thing. That kid's got some talent.
Well, and I guess reports again coming out that our good buddy, the knucklehead, has still.
I'm rooting for him.
Everyone is raving about Burton and how mature he is looking.
I want kids to do well. I don't want them to go down the wrong path. I don't want anyone to. And I hate to see wasted talent, and I pray he's not going to waste it. I really think I mean, I've been
Jamar
young.
Chase and T. Higgins.
Shit. So I'm really I'm hopeful for him.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have been singing his praise, just saying how much he's maturing on and off the field. So he looks locked in, and those are good things.
I hope so. I mean, when you're young, you can get lost for a while and do some stuff that 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years later, you're like, what was I thinking? I don't want him to blow it because he definitely has talent, and I don't want to see anyone waste their talent.
The last topic we need to get to, FC Cincinnati not looking so great. They played Wednesday and had a draw against Dallas 3-3. So at least they scored more than 2 goals. That's been at least a bugaboo that I've pointed out repeatedly. And then they play against DC United on Saturday and lose 2-1. 2 teams that they probably should have beat.
Right. And somehow they're second or third place, and their goal differential is like 1. That's not good.
Yes.
They've got to find some ways to score. And I know they're dealing with different things and different players, but man, I don't know how they're hanging where they are when you look at the goal problems. But if you have
another week like that, I mean, you've got Miami and Nashville at 29 points, right behind Cincinnati at 30 points. You've got Columbus at
their heels. Here comes Miami.
Columbus at 28 points, right behind them, and New York and Orlando at 27 points, right behind them. So it's not a comfortable lead by any means in second place. And if you have another shitty week, it's all going to come unraveling real quick.
Well, we'll see. They're off for a couple weeks here, or 11 days, or whatever it is. But yeah, we'll see. I've sold my soul and been confident with this front office and coaching staff, and I still am. But yes, they've got to put more goals. And they've had personnel changes, so style changes. But yeah, they have to find a way to put the damn ball in the net more. And they got. I mean, what'd you think about Lucho getting booed? I'm not a big fan of that.
I'm glad you brought that up. I meant to bring that up.
I get it, but I personally, I probably wouldn't have done it. However, I think about when Pete Rose left Cincinnati and then he came back the first time and played with the Phillies. I think I booed him.
I don't know what the way that he left. I don't know why he expected them to receive him with open arms.
Agree. Thank you. I do agree with that.
It's one thing to leave as a free agent and go sign somewhere else simply because your contract ran out and you decided to go find more money, a different opportunity, because there was something in that particular city, whether it be family, whether it be whatever the case. I don't care. Whatever your reasoning is, if you just left because your contract expired and you wanted to go somewhere else for a dearth of reasons, so be it. But if you pushed your way out of the city to where we had to trade you, and then you come back to the city and get booed because you were an asshole on your way out the door, setting fire to any bridge that you had, I don't know why you don't understand that no one's building the bridge for you to come back.
I'm with you. I agree. I mean, I don't know that I could have. I probably, if it would have been the 20-year-old George and not the 67-year-old, I would have booed his ass.
If it would have been the George, if it's George several beers in, I think George goes to that stadium and boos him.
You're probably right. Oh my God. Thank you. I agree. God dang
but
it.
I don't know. I don't know what he expected. You weren't going to come in on a white steed and have everyone cheer for you, you're out of your mind.
When I saw his or I read his reaction, I'm like, oh my God, dude.
It can't be a cultural disconnect.
I would have booed him, but and the only reason I say that is because he really, really was a big part of them, going into
Yeah.
MLS and all that.
Yeah.
A big part of it. So you have nice thoughts. But as you said, the last few months of that thing and the way he forced himself, it's like, okay. And so I get it. I totally get it. I'm just a little more older and docile.
Yeah. It can't be a cultural difference because these clubs around the world are far more crazy
they're brutal.
and fanatical than the MLS. So
Right.
I don't know what you're expecting. Like, what are you even thinking? If you were to do this over in, La Liga or something like that, it would have been even 10 times worse. You're crazy.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for saying.
Do you have anything on anything going on high school sports? I think we're pretty much wrapped up at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, Highlands is heading to the state baseball tournament in Kentucky, and so they'll be in the final 16. What's going on in Ohio? Oh God, Moeller plays Lakota West. That'll be an epic battle in the regional semifinals, and so that's going on in the next couple days, and my guess is, well, I'm not going to say what my guess is, but Moeller's got a very talented team.
Moeller's got some dogs.
Yep.
You could say that any year.
Every year. We've been saying that since 1960 something, maybe, in baseball. I mean, they've had so many major league players, it's a joke.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us here. Thank you for tuning in. If you were here with us live, thank you for listening. If you're on the podcast, as always, check out Remington Tavern. They can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. While you're there, grab yourself a nice cold Cincy Light on tap. But for George Vogel, I'm Aaron Smith. We'll see you back here next week, 9 p.m., to discuss all of your Cincinnati sports.
Thank you, Aaron.